Billionaire was in a coma for 2 years until a boy tickled his foot and... Jennifer Thompson pulled the cleaning cart down the hallway of the private hospital, her tired eyes ignoring the luxury around her. She had worked there for 2 years, always invisible, always quiet. No one paid attention to her, and that was exactly how she preferred it. But on that Thursday afternoon, her son Ethan had shown up early from school. The 8-year-old boy, with his curly hair and curious eyes, couldn't stay home alone. Jennifer looked around and sighed. She needed to finish her shift. She had no choice. "Ethan, you sit quietly over there in the corner while I finish, okay?" she whispered, pointing to a chair near the window. "Okay, Mum," the boy replied, swinging his legs. Jennifer pushed the cart to room 507. That room made her uneasy. Inside was William Anderson, 72 years old, one of the richest men in the United States. Or at least he had been. Now he was just a motionless body in the bed, trapped in a deep coma for 2 years. She entered slowly, as she always did. The sound of the machines was the only sign of life. William lay there, thin, with pale skin, his eyes closed. Jennifer began to clean, wiping the surfaces with a damp cloth, arranging the few personal items the family left there. Outside, Ethan couldn't sit still. His childlike curiosity pulled him. He got up and walked to the slightly open door. He peeked inside and saw the man in the bed. "Mum, who is he?" he asked softly. "Ethan, I told you to stay seated," Jennifer replied, without looking back. "But is he sleeping?" He's very sick. Now, go back to the chair." But Ethan didn't go back. He entered the room, fascinated. He had never seen anyone like that. The boy approached the bed and watched the man's face. He looked peaceful, as if he were just sleeping. Jennifer realized her son had entered and turned quickly. "Ethan, get out of here now," she said, panic clear in her voice. If anyone saw the boy there, she could be fired. Ethan stepped back, but tripped over the cleaning cart. The colorful duster his mother used to clean high places fell to the floor. The boy quickly picked it up, but as he did, the duster lightly brushed against William Anderson's bare foot. The big toe moved. It was a small movement, almost imperceptible. But it happened. Jennifer froze. Her heart raced. She looked at the man's foot, then at her son, then at the door. She needed to get out of there. "Let's go," she whispered, pulling Ethan by the arm. "Mom, his foot moved," Ethan exclaimed, excited. "Shh! Don't speak loudly. Let's go." They quickly left the room. Jennifer finished her shift in shock, thinking about what she had seen, or what she thought she had seen. Maybe it was just a muscle spasm. It happened with coma patients. It didn't mean anything. But when she went home that night, she couldn't stop thinking about it. The next day, Jennifer arrived at work with a tight stomach. She didn't know if she should tell anyone about what had happened, but who would believe her? She was just a cleaning assistant. And besides, maybe it was nothing after all. She spent the day cleaning other rooms, avoiding 507. But in the late afternoon, when she was about to leave, she saw something that made her stop. Dr. Richard Collins, the Anderson family's private physician, was leaving William's room with a troubled expression. He was holding a clipboard tightly, his fingers white from the pressure. Beside him was Amanda Anderson, William's eldest daughter, a 45-year-old woman impeccably dressed, with brown hair tied in an elegant bun. "Are the tests stable?" Amanda asked, her voice cold and calculating. "Yes, Mrs. Anderson. No changes." "Your father remains in a persistent vegetative state," the doctor replied, but his voice trembled slightly. "Great. I need you to sign the documents my lawyer prepared, certifying that my father is completely incapable of making decisions." "Yes, of course." Jennifer lowered her head and moved on, pretending she hadn't heard anything. But something about that conversation deeply troubled her. That night, Ethan wouldn't stop asking questions about the man in the hospital. "Mom, why doesn't he wake up?" "He had a very serious problem with his head, son. Sometimes that happens." "But could he wake up one day?" "I don't know, Ethan. I think he can. I saw his foot move." Jennifer looked at her son with tenderness. Ethan was a sweet child, full of hope. She didn't want to destroy that. Maybe one day, son. Maybe. The next morning, when Jennifer arrived at the hospital, she was called by the cleaning coordinator, Mrs. Betty. "Jennifer, I need to speak with you," the woman in her early 60s said seriously. Jennifer's heart raced. She knew what was coming. "Your son was seen here yesterday. You know you can't bring children to work." "I know, Mrs. Betty. I'm sorry. He got out of school early and I had no one to leave him with. It won't happen again." Mrs. Betty sighed. "Look, I understand your situation, but if the board finds out, I'll have to fire you. You understand that, right?" "I understand. I'm really sorry." "All right. But it can't happen again." Jennifer agreed and went to work, relieved she hadn't lost her job. But all day she thought about Ethan, and she thought about William Anderson, and she thought about the foot that moved. Could it have been real? The following days were tense. Jennifer avoided room 507 whenever she could, but one afternoon she had no choice. Mrs. Betty specifically assigned her to clean that floor. When she entered the room, William was in the same position as always, motionless, connected to machines, breathing through a tube. Jennifer began cleaning quickly, wanting to get out of there as soon as possible. But then she heard footsteps in the hallway, voices approaching. She recognized Amanda Anderson's voice, and with her, a man. Jennifer quickly hid in the room's bathroom, leaving the door slightly ajar. "Robert, you need to speed up the process," Amanda was saying to the man, her brother-in-law, married to her younger sister. "I'm doing what I can, Amanda, but getting the legal power of attorney isn't simple. My father has been in a coma for 2 years. What more do they need? Patience. Soon we'll have full control of the companies." Jennifer held her breath. She shouldn't be hearing this. "And your wife? Is Elizabeth in agreement?" Amanda asked. "Elizabeth does what I tell her," Robert replied arrogantly. The two left the room, and Jennifer waited a few minutes before coming out of the bathroom. Her heart was racing. That conversation didn't seem right. When she finally left the room, she almost bumped into someone else in the hallway. It was a young woman about 20 years old, with pink-dyed hair and nose piercings. She looked at Jennifer curiously. "Are you new here?" the young woman asked. "No, I've worked here for 2 years. "Funny, I've never seen you. I'm Sophie, the patient in 507's granddaughter." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. Jennifer was at a loss for words. Sophie had a different energy from the other members of the Anderson family. There was something genuine about her. "Do you take care of my grandfather?" Sophie asked. I clean the room." "I see." Sophie looked at the room door. "Sometimes I wonder if he can hear anything, if he knows we're here." "I don't know, miss. My mother thinks it's a waste of time to come here. Says he's already gone, but I can't accept that." Sophie's voice trembled. "He was so present in my life when I was a child. He used to take me fishing, you know, told stories. Then he changed, became obsessed with work, but I know the grandfather I loved is still in there somewhere." Jennifer felt a pang in her chest. There was genuine pain in that young woman. "I'm sure he knows you come to visit him," Jennifer said softly. Sophie smiled sadly and entered the room. Jennifer continued her work, but she couldn't stop thinking. In that family there were people who loved William Anderson, and there were people who wanted his money. And in the middle of all this, a man trapped inside his own body, unable to defend himself. That night Jennifer couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about Ethan, about how he was absolutely certain the man's foot had moved. What if it were true? What if William Anderson was conscious in some way, trapped inside a body that wouldn't respond? The next day Jennifer did something she knew was risky. She took Ethan to the hospital again, but this time it was planned. She waited until the end of her shift, when she knew most doctors had already left. Only the night nursing staff remained, and they rarely entered William's room, just checked the monitors. "Ethan, I'm going to take you to that room, but you have to promise you'll do exactly what I say, okay?" "Okay, Mum." They entered room 507. William was there, as always. Ethan approached the bed, his big eyes fixed on the man. "Do it again," Jennifer whispered, "with the duster." Ethan took the colorful duster his mother was holding and carefully brushed the soft feathers on the sole of William's foot. The big toe moved. This time Jennifer saw it clearly. It wasn't her imagination. It was real. "Mum, did you see?" Ethan whispered excitedly. Jennifer felt tears in her eyes. There was something happening there, something important. "Do it again," she asked. Ethan repeated the motion, and again the big toe reacted. Small twitches, but definite. Jennifer looked at William's face, and then she saw something that made her hold her breath. A tear, a single tear running down the corner of his closed eye. "My God," she whispered. At that moment, Jennifer made a decision. She didn't know if it was the right decision, but her heart told her she had to do something. That man was alive in some way, and she would be the only person willing to prove it. The following days were ones of careful observation. Jennifer began paying attention to everything that happened in room 507. She noticed that Amanda visited her father every day, but only for a few minutes, always accompanied by her son-in-law Robert, always talking in low voices about business, about papers, about control. Elizabeth, the youngest daughter, rarely appeared. When she visited, she stood at the door, looking at her father with an expression Jennifer couldn't decipher. Sadness, anger, guilt. And then there was Sophie, the granddaughter, who came 3 times a week. She spent hours by her grandfather's side, talking about her life, about college, about her dreams. Sometimes she just held his hand and cried. One night, Jennifer stayed late working overtime. She needed the money. While cleaning the hallway near room 507, she heard raised voices. In came Amanda, Robert, and, to Jennifer's surprise, Elizabeth. "You can't be serious, Elizabeth," Amanda practically shouted. "I am. I won't sign these papers," Elizabeth replied, her voice firm but trembling. "You know very well we need this to protect Dad's estate." Protect or steal? The silence that followed was heavy. "How dare you?" Amanda hissed. "Everything we're doing is for the good of the family." "You just want control of the companies, Amanda. You always have, and you're using Dad's condition to get it." "And you," Robert intervened. "You who never cared about anything but your social causes. Now suddenly you're worried about the companies." "I'm not worried about the companies. I'm worried about Dad. Dad is vegetative," Amanda exploded. "He's not going to wake up. The doctors have said it 1,000 times. "Then why are you so afraid?" Elizabeth asked calmly. "If he's not going to wake up anyway, what's the problem with waiting?" Amanda didn't answer. She just grabbed her purse and left furiously, Robert following her. Elizabeth stood in the hallway for a few minutes, taking deep breaths. Jennifer stayed quiet, pretending to be busy cleaning, but then Elizabeth looked in her direction. "How long have you worked here?" she asked. Jennifer hesitated. 2 years, ma'am." "Do you take care of my father's room?" "Yes." Elizabeth approached, studying Jennifer carefully. "Have you noticed anything different about him? Any changes?" Jennifer's heart raced. She could tell. She could mention the foot that moved, the tear, but something made her hesitate. She didn't know these people. She didn't know who to trust. "No, ma'am, nothing different." Elizabeth nodded slowly, but her eyes showed she didn't completely believe it. "If you notice anything, any change, no matter how small, tell me, please." She took a card from her pocket and handed it to Jennifer. "This is my private number." Jennifer took the card, surprised. "Yes, ma'am." When Elizabeth was gone, Jennifer looked at the card in her hands. Maybe there was someone in that family who truly cared about William Anderson. That night, already at home, Jennifer couldn't stop thinking. She had to make a decision. Should she keep bringing Ethan secretly? Should she tell someone about William's reactions? "Mom, can we go back there tomorrow?" Ethan asked before going to sleep. "Why, honey?" "I want to make the man smile. He looks so sad." Jennifer felt her heart tighten. "He can't smile, Ethan. But maybe he can, if I keep trying." The naive faith of a child. Jennifer wished she had the same hope. The next morning, Jennifer arrived at work and found the hospital in an uproar. There were extra security guards in the hallways, people in suits coming and going. "What happened?" she asked Mrs. Betty. "The Anderson family is having an emergency meeting. It seems there's a legal dispute going on." Jennifer felt a knot in her stomach. She continued her work, but when she passed by room 507, she saw through the window a group of people inside. Amanda, Robert, Elizabeth, Sophie, and some men in suits she didn't know. Probably lawyers. The door was closed, but Jennifer could hear raised voices. She shouldn't be there, but she couldn't move. Your power of attorney was approved yesterday, Amanda. You have total control over our father's finances. Are you satisfied? It was Elizabeth's voice, full of bitterness. That was necessary, Elizabeth. Someone had to take the reins. Someone or you? You two, stop it, a male voice intervened. Jennifer didn't recognize who it was. This isn't getting us anywhere. What matters is that we now have the legal means to protect Anthony's estate. And what are we going to do with him? Sophie spoke for the first time, her voice full of emotion. Are we just going to let him rot here? Sophie, don't be dramatic, Robert said disdainfully. Dramatic? My grandfather has been in a coma for 2 years, and all you care about is money. That's not true, Amanda replied, but her voice lacked conviction. Jennifer heard footsteps approaching the door and quickly moved away, pushing her cart to the next room. But she had heard enough. Amanda had gained legal control over William Anderson, and with that over his entire business empire. For the rest of the day, Jennifer thought about calling the number Elizabeth had given her. But what would she say? That William's foot moved when her 8-year-old son tickled it with a feather duster? It sounded ridiculous even to her. But that night something changed. Jennifer was finishing her shift when she saw Dr. Richard Collins leaving William's room. He looked upset, more than usual. His hands were shaking as he held a clipboard. He went to an empty room at the end of the hall. Jennifer, driven by an impulse she didn't fully understand, followed him. The door was slightly ajar. She saw the doctor sit in a chair and put his hands over his face. He was crying. My God, what have I done? He murmured to himself. What have I done? Jennifer froze. Something was very wrong. The doctor picked up his phone and dialed a number. Amanda, we need to talk. No, not over the phone. In person. Tomorrow. Yes, it's urgent. He hung up and sat there, his head in his hands. Jennifer quickly left, her heart racing. Something was happening, something that went far beyond a family dispute over money. That night, she couldn't sleep. She lay staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything she had seen and heard in the last few weeks. And she thought about William Anderson, alone in that room, surrounded by machines, unable to defend himself. She needed to do something. The next morning, Jennifer made a decision. She would call Elizabeth. She would tell her about William's reactions. It didn't matter if it sounded crazy. She had to try. But when she arrived at the hospital, she was met by Mrs. Betty with a serious expression. Jennifer, I need to speak with you now. Jennifer's heart sank. I've received a complaint, Mrs. Betty began. They say your son was seen here again. I can explain. There's no explanation, Jennifer. You know the rules. I warned you. Please, Mrs. Betty, I need this job. I know, and that's why I'm giving you one last chance. But if it happens again, I'll have to let you go. Understood? Jennifer agreed, relieved but scared. Someone had seen her with Ethan. Someone had complained. She spent the day working in a constant state of anxiety. She avoided room 507, afraid that anything she did might cost her job. But at the end of the day, as she was leaving, she crossed paths with Sophie in the hallway. The young woman looked like she had been crying. Her eyes were red and swollen. Are you okay, miss? Jennifer asked without thinking. Sophie looked at her, surprised by the genuine concern. No, I'm not. She hesitated, then continued. My mom and my aunt are fighting. My family is falling apart while my grandfather is lying there, helpless, and I don't know what to do. Jennifer felt a connection with that young woman. Both felt powerless in a situation that seemed beyond their control. Sometimes all we can do is keep showing up, Jennifer said softly. Keep trying. Sophie looked at her with gratitude. Thank you. You're the first person who's said something to me that doesn't feel empty. After Sophie left, Jennifer kept thinking. Maybe it wasn't a coincidence that their paths had crossed. Maybe there was a reason for all this. That night, Jennifer finally called the number Elizabeth had given her. "Hello?" Elizabeth's voice answered after a few rings. "Mrs. Elizabeth, it's Jennifer, the cleaning assistant from the hospital." "Yes, Jennifer. Has something happened?" Jennifer took a deep breath. "I need to tell you something. About your father." There was silence on the other end of the line. "I'm listening." He reacts to stimuli. His foot moves. I've seen tears. I think he's conscious in some way." The silence that followed seemed to last an eternity. "Are you sure?" Elizabeth finally asked, her voice trembling. "I am. I saw it with my own eyes. The doctors say he's in a vegetative state, that there is no conscious brain activity." "I know what they say, but I saw it, Mrs. Elizabeth. Your father is in there somehow." Elizabeth sobbed on the other end of the line. "Thank you for telling me. I always felt there was something. I'll look into this. Can I trust you?" "Yes. And Jennifer, be careful. There are people who won't like this." They hung up, and Jennifer stared at the phone, thinking about what she had just done. There was no turning back now. In the following days, Jennifer noticed subtle changes. Elizabeth began showing up at the hospital more frequently. She brought different doctors, specialists Jennifer didn't know. They ran tests on William, checked his reactions, and Amanda did not like this at all. One afternoon, Jennifer was cleaning the hallway when she heard a heated argument coming from room 507. "You have no authority to bring doctors without my approval," Amanda shouted. "He's my father too," Elizabeth retorted. "I have the power of attorney. I make the decisions." "Medical decisions, no. I still have the right to seek second opinions. You're wasting your time and money." "Daddy isn't going to wake up. You seem very sure of that." "What are you implying?" "I'm implying that you have a very strong interest in keeping Daddy in this state." The sound of a slap echoed through the hallway. Jennifer flinched, not knowing what to do. Elizabeth left the room with her hand on her face, tears streaming down. She saw Jennifer and stopped. "You're the one who told me, aren't you?" Amanda appeared behind her. "The cleaning lady." Jennifer felt her blood run cold. "I don't know what you're talking about, ma'am. Don't lie to me." Amanda approached, her eyes cold and calculating. "You're filling my sister's head with false hope. I only told her what I saw. You saw muscle spasms, reflexes, nothing more. And if you keep spreading these lies, I'll make sure you lose your job. Understood?" Jennifer swallowed hard and nodded. Amanda turned and left, leaving Elizabeth and Jennifer in the hallway. "I'm sorry," Elizabeth whispered. "I didn't mean to put you in danger." "It's okay. I knew the risk. But I'm not giving up. I'll keep investigating. And if my father really is conscious, I'll prove it." Elizabeth squeezed Jennifer's hand and left. That night, Jennifer came home emotionally exhausted. Ethan greeted her with a hug. "Mom, when can we go back to visit the man in the bed?" "We can't anymore, son." "Why?" "It's complicated. Grown-ups fighting over grown-up things." "But he liked it when I tickled him. I know he did." Jennifer looked at her son tenderly. "I know he did, my love." But in her mind she thought, what if Ethan was right? What if William Anderson could actually feel, could perceive what was happening around him? How horrifying it would be to be trapped in your own body, conscious but unable to communicate, while your family fought for control of your empire? The next few days were tense at the hospital. Jennifer worked in silence, avoiding eye contact with any member of the Anderson family, but she watched, always watched. She saw when Elizabeth brought a specialist neurologist from New York. She saw when Amanda intercepted him and had a private conversation with him. She saw when the doctor left the hospital without examining William. She saw when Sophie went into her grandfather's room and screamed at the machines, begging him to wake up. She saw when Robert, the son-in-law, spent hours on the phone discussing stock transfers and shareholder control. And she saw when Dr. Richard Collins started avoiding room 507, sending nurses to do the routine checkups. There was something rotten in that situation. Jennifer could feel it, but she was just a cleaning assistant. Who would believe her? Dear listener, If you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. 1 week after the tense conversation with Amanda, Jennifer was cleaning an empty room when she heard her name being called. It was Sophie. "Can I talk to you?" the young woman asked. "Of course, miss." Sophie looked around, making sure they were alone. "My Aunt Elizabeth told me you saw reactions in my grandfather. Is it true?" Jennifer hesitated. After everything that had happened, should she keep getting involved? But when she looked at Sophie, she saw the same desperate hope she'd seen in Ethan's eyes, the hope that miracles were still possible. "Yes, it's true. Can you show me?" "I don't know if that's a good idea. Your Aunt Amanda threatened me." "Please, I need to know. I need to be sure I'm not crazy for still believing he's in there." Jennifer looked at the young woman and saw something in her that touched her deeply. Sophie truly loved her grandfather. She didn't care about money, companies, or power. She just wanted her grandfather back. "All right. But it has to be now, while the others aren't here." They went to room 507. William was there as always, connected to machines, eyes closed, breathing controlled by the ventilator. Jennifer approached the bed and gently touched the sole of his foot. There was no reaction. "Sometimes it takes a while," she explained. Sophie watched intently. Jennifer touched again, a bit more firmly, and then, very slowly, William's big toe moved. Sophie gasped, covering her mouth with her hands. "Grandpa," she whispered. "Grandpa, are you there?" She took his hand, squeezing tightly. "If you can hear me, please give me a sign, any sign." They waited. For a long minute, nothing happened. And then, so subtly it almost went unnoticed, William's fingers lightly squeezed Sophie's hand. The young woman burst into tears. "I knew it! I knew you were there!" Jennifer felt tears in her own eyes. It was real. William Anderson was conscious. "We need to tell someone," Sophie said, wiping her tears. "We need witnesses, evidence." "Your Aunt Elizabeth already knows. She's trying to bring in specialists. But my Aunt Amanda is blocking everything. She has the power of attorney. She has legal authority." Sophie looked at her grandfather with determination. "But if I can get video evidence, if I can document this—" "It could be dangerous," Jennifer warned. "I don't care. My grandfather needs help." Sophie took out her phone and started recording. She asked Jennifer to repeat the tests. She touched his foot again, squeezed his hand, spoke to him. And William responded. Small movements, subtle but definite. When they finished, Sophie had almost 5 minutes of video. "I'll show this to Aunt Elizabeth, and we'll go to court if necessary." "Be careful," Jennifer warned. "There's a lot of money involved in this." "I know, but I won't leave my grandfather trapped like this." Sophie left, determined, and Jennifer stayed there for a few more minutes, looking at William. "I don't know if you can hear me," she whispered. "But if you can, know that there are people fighting for you, and I'll do what I can to help." She gently touched his hand and felt, for a brief second, a pressure in return. In the following days, things escalated quickly. Elizabeth and Sophie went to court with the videos, requesting an independent medical re-evaluation of William. Amanda counterattacked with her own doctors, all testifying that any movement was merely reflexive. The hospital became a legal battlefield. Jennifer tried to stay invisible, but she knew it was only a matter of time until she'd be called to testify, and she was afraid of what that would mean for her job, for her life. One afternoon, she was cleaning when she was approached by Robert. "You're the woman causing all this trouble, aren't you?" he said, his voice low but threatening. "I didn't cause anything. I just told what I saw. You filled Sophie and Elizabeth's heads with empty hopes. Do you know how much money is being wasted on lawyers and doctors because of your lies? They're not lies." "Yes, they are. William Anderson is in a vegetative state. The best doctors in the country confirmed it. You're just a cleaning assistant. What do you know about medicine?" "I know what I saw with my own eyes." Robert moved closer, invading her personal space. "If you know what's good for you, you'll stop this. You'll admit you were mistaken, or you'll lose much more than your job. Are you threatening me?" I'm warning you." He stepped away, leaving Jennifer trembling. That night she told everything to Ethan. The boy listened carefully. "Mom, you have to keep helping him. He needs you. But son, it could be dangerous. You always taught me to do what's right even when it's hard. Is this any different?" The simple wisdom of a child. Jennifer hugged her son tightly. "No, son, it's not different." The next day, Jennifer was called to the hospital administration office. Her heart sank. Inside the room were the hospital director, Mrs. Betty, and to her surprise, Elizabeth. "Jennifer, sit down," the director said. She sat, prepared for the worst. "Are you aware of the legal situation involving patient William Anderson?" the director asked. "Yes, ma'am." "And are you aware that your testimony could be crucial in this case?" "Yes." "Mrs. Elizabeth Anderson has requested that you be released to testify formally about what you observed. However, Mrs. Amanda Anderson, who holds her father's legal power of attorney, is demanding your immediate dismissal for inappropriate conduct." Jennifer felt the floor disappear beneath her feet. I didn't do anything wrong." "We know that," Elizabeth intervened, "and I'll make sure you don't lose your job for doing what's right." "You have no authority here," the director said coldly. "This is a hospital administration decision." "Actually, I do." Elizabeth placed some papers on the table. "I discovered my sister has a conflict of interest. She's negotiating the sale of our father's shares in this hospital. If her power of attorney is invalidated, which we're trying to do, those negotiations fall through. The hospital loses millions. So yes, there's a financial interest in keeping my father incapacitated." The director paled. "These are serious allegations. They're facts. And if this hospital fires Jennifer, I'll make sure all this becomes public. Let's see how patients will feel knowing medical decisions are being influenced by financial interests." The silence in the room was heavy. "Jennifer will keep her job," the director finally said, "but she'll be transferred to another floor. She'll no longer have contact with patient William Anderson." "That's acceptable," Elizabeth agreed. Jennifer didn't know whether to feel relieved or disappointed. She'd keep her job, but couldn't see William anymore. After the meeting, Elizabeth pulled her aside. "Thank you for having the courage to speak up. You don't know how much this means. What happens now?" "We have a court hearing next week. A judge will decide if my father should undergo a new medical evaluation, and you might be called to testify." "I'll testify, I'm not afraid." Elizabeth smiled sadly. "You're braver than many people I know." The following week, as expected, Jennifer was called to court. It was her first time in such a place, and she was terrified. The courtroom was intimidating. On one side, Elizabeth and Sophie with their lawyers. On the other, Amanda and Robert with theirs. And in the middle, a middle-aged judge who seemed tired of the whole situation. Jennifer was called to testify. She told everything about Ethan and the feather duster, about the thumb movements, about the tear, about the handshake. Amanda's lawyers tore into her. "Mrs. Thompson, do you have any medical training?" "No." "Knowledge in neurology?" "No." "Then how can you state with certainty that what you saw weren't simply involuntary muscle reflexes?" "Because I saw it. I was there." "But without technical knowledge, your observation is subjective, isn't it?" "Maybe, but I know what I saw." The lawyer smiled disdainfully. No further questions. Jennifer left the witness stand feeling she had failed, but then she saw Sophie smiling at her, nodding in encouragement. Other testimonies followed. Doctors from both sides presented technical arguments Jennifer could barely understand. But it became clear there was a genuine division in the medical community about William's condition. Some believed he was in a permanent vegetative state. Others thought there might be some minimal consciousness. At the end of the day, the judge banged the gavel. "I will order a new medical evaluation, conducted by independent experts with no affiliation to either party. The patient William Anderson will undergo complete neurological testing. The decision regarding the power of attorney will be suspended until we have conclusive results." Amanda stormed out of the room furiously. Elizabeth and Sophie hugged each other, relieved. Jennifer felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She had done her part, but as she was leaving the courthouse, she was approached by Robert. "You'll regret this," he hissed. You have no idea who you're messing with." "I'm messing with people who want to help a defenseless man," Jennifer replied, finding a courage she didn't know she possessed. "You're naive. Do you think Elizabeth cares about her father? She just wants the control that Amanda got. It's all about power and money." "I don't believe that." "Then you're more foolish than I thought." He walked away, leaving Jennifer with an uneasy feeling. What if he was right? What if she was just a pawn in a bigger game, manipulated by both sides? But then she thought of Sophie, how the young woman cried beside her grandfather, the genuine love in her voice when she spoke to him. No, there were people there who truly cared, and Jennifer had done the right thing by helping them. In the following days, the hospital was buzzing with William's new medical evaluation. A team of specialists from Boston was brought in, completely independent of any involved party. Jennifer, now working on another floor, only heard the rumors. The doctors were conducting extensive tests, brain imaging scans, stimulus response tests, in-depth neurological analyses. And then, a week later, the results were released. Jennifer was at home when Elizabeth called her. "Jennifer, you were right." Elizabeth's voice was choked with emotion. "The tests showed conscious brain activity. My father is not in a vegetative state. He has what they call locked-in syndrome. He's conscious but unable to move or communicate conventionally." Jennifer felt tears stream down her face. It means he's in there, trapped, for 2 years, aware of everything." Elizabeth sobbed. "My God, Jennifer. He heard everything we said, everything we did. The fights, the arguments about money. He was there the whole time." The horror of that revelation hit Jennifer like a punch. William Anderson had spent 2 years conscious but unable to communicate, hearing his family fight over his empire while he lay there, helpless. "What happens now?" Jennifer asked. "The doctors will try to establish a communication system with him. Blinks, finger movements, anything, and Amanda will have to answer for this. The power of attorney was granted based on incorrect medical information." "Do you think she knew?" Elizabeth fell silent for a moment. "I don't know. Part of me wants to believe she didn't, that she was deceived by the doctors as much as we were. But another part is afraid that she knew all along." After hanging up, Jennifer sat in silence. Ethan came to sit beside her. "Mum, is the man going to be okay?" "I hope so, son, I hope so." In the following days, the story made headlines. Billionaire conscious in coma for 2 years. Family fought over empire, while patriarch was trapped in his own body. Cleaning assistant discovers truth doctors missed. Jennifer suddenly found herself at the center of a media storm. Reporters knocked on her door. They wanted interviews. They wanted to know how she had found out. She refused all interviews. She didn't want attention. She just wanted William to get the help he deserved. But the attention came anyway. The hospital promoted her. They gave her a small bonus. They said she was an example of dedication and attention to detail. Jennifer knew it was just an attempt to improve the hospital's image after the scandal, but she accepted it anyway. She needed the money. Amanda and Robert disappeared from the media. There were rumors they were under investigation, that the power of attorney was being revoked, that they could face fraud charges. Elizabeth took over her father's care and began a long and painful process of establishing communication with him. Sophie visited her grandfather every day, talking to him, apologizing for all the times she thought he wasn't listening. And Jennifer, from her new position on the floor below, thought of William often. She thought about how a simple child's curiosity, a colorful duster tickling, had been the start of it all. 1 month after the revelation, Jennifer received a message from Elizabeth asking her to visit the hospital on a specific day. When she arrived, she was taken to room 507. Inside were Elizabeth, Sophie, and a team of doctors. And William, still in bed, still connected to machines, but with his eyes open. Conscious eyes, alive, looking directly at her. "Jennifer," Elizabeth said softly, "my father wants to meet you. We've established a communication system. 1 blink for yes, 2 for no." Jennifer approached the bed, her heart racing. "Mr. Anderson," she began, not knowing what to say. William's eyes filled with tears. He blinked once. Yes. "My father wants to thank you," Elizabeth explained. "He says you and your son were the first to truly see him, to realize he was there." Jennifer felt tears streaming down her face. I just did what I thought was right." William blinked again. "Once?" "Yes." "He wants to meet your son," Sophie said. "If you'll allow it." Jennifer looked at the man in the bed. 2 years. 2 years conscious, but trapped. And now, finally, able to communicate, even if limited. "I'll bring Ethan," she promised. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, feel free to leave a like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out, now continuing. The next day, Jennifer took Ethan to the hospital. The boy was nervous and excited at the same time. "Will he be able to talk to me?" Ethan asked. "Not with words, but he can communicate in other ways." When they entered the room, Ethan saw William and his eyes lit up. "It's him. The man I tickled." Jennifer smiled. "That's right, son." Ethan approached the bed, fearless, with the innocence of a child. "Hi, sir, I'm Ethan. Do you remember me?" William blinked once and more tears streamed down his face. "He's crying." Ethan grew worried. "Did I do something wrong?" "No, son," Elizabeth explained gently. "They're tears of joy. He's happy to see you." Ethan smiled, relieved. "Mom said you're trapped inside your body. That must be really awful." William blinked once. "But now everyone knows you're in there. And they're going to help you, right?" Another blink. "Cool." Ethan thought for a moment. "Do you want me to tickle you again? With the feather duster?" For the first time since he had woken up, something that could be interpreted as a smile appeared in William's eyes. He blinked once. Elizabeth picked up a feather duster she had brought especially for this. Ethan took it and gently brushed the colorful feathers across the sole of William's foot. The big toe moved, and this time everyone saw it. Ethan laughed, delighted. "It works." And there in that hospital room, with doctors watching and Elizabeth recording everything for documentation, a child tickled a billionaire, and for a brief moment, part of the horror of the last 2 years seemed to dissipate. In the weeks that followed, William's treatment progressed slowly. Physical therapists worked with him daily. Speech therapists tried to help him regain some vocal ability. It was a slow and painful process. But there was progress. Jennifer visited when she could, always bringing Ethan. The boy had become a sort of mascot for the medical team. He made William smile, or at least try to. And there was something therapeutic about his innocent presence. But not all was good news. The investigation into Amanda and Robert revealed disturbing things. Documents showed they were aware of medical tests suggesting consciousness in William, but these tests were suppressed. Dr. Richard Collins was called to testify, and what he revealed shocked everyone. He had been pressured by Amanda and Robert to diagnose William as vegetative. They offered money, threatened his career, manipulated test results. He gave in, and for 2 years, he maintained the lie. "I didn't know what to do," he confessed, crying during his testimony. "They had so much power. And I'm a coward. I've lived with this guilt every day." The doctor lost his medical license. Amanda and Robert faced criminal charges of fraud and coercion. Elizabeth officially took over her father's care, this time without contest. She hired the best specialists, regardless of cost. And slowly, very slowly, William began to regain some control over his body. 6 months after the discovery, he managed to whisper his first word in 2.5 years. "Thank you." The word was directed at Jennifer and Ethan, who were visiting that day. Jennifer cried. Ethan jumped for joy. "He talked. Mom, he talked." It was just one word, but it meant there was hope. That maybe, just maybe, William Anderson could have some quality of life back. But the road would be long. 1 year after the discovery, William had regained limited movement in one hand. He could blink intentionally. He could move his head slightly. And he could articulate a few words, though with great difficulty. It wasn't much. But compared to 2 years trapped completely inside his own body, it was a miracle. The family was changed. Amanda was convicted of fraud. Robert was too. Both faced years in prison. Elizabeth had taken over her father's companies, managing them with his guidance. She visited every day, telling him about business decisions, asking for advice through the communication system they had developed. Sophie was in medical school. Inspired by her grandfather's experience, she decided to specialize in neurology, and Jennifer had been hired as William's personal assistant. She was no longer just the cleaning lady. Now she was someone he trusted, someone who would always be by his side. Ethan continued visiting regularly. He and William had developed a special relationship. The boy would tell stories from school, talk about soccer, about his dreams. And William, in the way he could, responded. With blinks, with finger movements, with forced whispers. It wasn't the life he had before, it never would be. But it was a life, it was existence with meaning, with connection, with love. One day, almost 2 years after the discovery, Jennifer was sitting beside William. He had had a difficult day with physical therapy. He was tired. "Mr. William," she said softly, "can I ask you a question?" He blinked once. "Yes." "During those 2 years, and when you were trapped, what kept you sane? What stopped you from giving up?" William stayed silent for a long moment. Then, with great effort, he whispered, "Hope. Always. Hope." Jennifer smiled with tears in her eyes. "And a boy with a colorful feather duster." William managed to give something that resembled a smile. "Yes, that too." Jennifer took his hand, squeezing it gently. "You are the strongest man I've ever known." William squeezed back in the way he could, and there, in that hospital room that had been his prison for so long, but which was now a place of healing and recovery, 2 human beings shared a moment of deep understanding. Life could be cruel, it could trap you, take everything from you, but as long as there were people willing to look beyond the surface, to believe in the impossible, to tickle with a colorful feather duster just to see if there was still life pulsing. There was hope. There was always hope. But William Anderson's story was far from over, and Jennifer was about to discover that some secrets from the past have roots deeper than anyone imagined. It was on an ordinary afternoon, 3 months after that conversation, that Elizabeth asked to speak with Jennifer in private. They sat in an empty meeting room at the hospital. Elizabeth seemed nervous, fidgeting with her hands, avoiding eye contact. "Jennifer, I need to tell you something I discovered recently and that, well, it's going to change everything." Jennifer's heart raced. "What is it?" Elizabeth took a deep breath. "When I was organizing my father's personal documents, I found some things. Old letters, kept in a locked box in his private office." She took a yellowed letter from the envelope she was holding. "This letter is from a woman named Sarah Thompson. She wrote to my father 30 years ago." Jennifer froze. Thompson was her last name, and Sarah. "Sarah Thompson was my mother," she whispered. Elizabeth nodded slowly. "I know, after I read the letter, I investigated, and I found out that, Jennifer, your mother and my father had a relationship before he married my mother." Jennifer's world stopped spinning. "No, that's not possible. Your mother got pregnant. He didn't know. When she tried to tell him, he was already engaged. He was already building his empire. Sarah decided not to say anything, not to ruin his life." Jennifer felt nauseous. "Are you saying that my father is your father too? You are my half-sister?" The silence that followed was deafening. Jennifer stood up abruptly, needing air, needing space. No, that can't be right. My mother she never mentioned." "She protected you from growing up with the weight of being the unrecognized daughter of a powerful man. How can you be sure? How do you know it's not a mistake?" Elizabeth took another paper from the envelope. "I did a DNA test with a sample of yours that I got," she said, looking ashamed. "From the cup you used a few weeks ago. I know it was invasive, and I apologize for that, but I needed to be sure before telling you." She handed the paper to Jennifer. There, in clear medical terms, was the confirmation. Jennifer Thompson and Elizabeth Anderson shared 25% of their DNA. They were half-sisters. Jennifer sat down heavily, her legs giving way. My God, my God. This means that Ethan is my father's grandson, yes. The pieces began to fall into place in Jennifer's mind. Ethan had always had a connection with William. He always felt there was something special about that man. Was it some instinct, some unconscious recognition? Does he know? Jennifer asked. Does William know who I am? I told him. Yesterday. And Jennifer, he cried. He cried more than I've ever seen. And when he could speak, he asked for forgiveness. He said he regretted every day not going after Sarah when she disappeared. He said he loved her, that he never should have married for convenience. Jennifer was in shock. Her whole life, her entire identity, was being rewritten before her eyes. Your mother passed away 5 years ago, right? Elizabeth asked gently. Yes. Cancer. My father went into a coma 6 months later. The doctors never found the exact cause. But now I understand. He found out about Sarah's death. And the guilt, the regret, it was too much for him. A tear rolled down Jennifer's face. My mother never spoke ill of him. Never. She only said my father was a good man who made decisions he had to make. Sarah seemed to be an incredible woman. And you're proof of that. Elizabeth stood up and hugged Jennifer. The two women, now sisters, cried together. What do we do now? Jennifer finally asked. Now you decide. Decide if you want this to be public. Decide if you want to be recognized as his daughter. Decide how much you want Ethan to know. And the inheritance, the companies, this will change everything, won't it? Legally, you're entitled to part of the inheritance. But I won't lie, Jennifer. There will be battles. Amanda will fight this, even from prison. Other people will question it. Jennifer shook her head. I don't want money. I never did. I just wanted to do the right thing. I know. But this isn't about money. It's about belonging. It's about Ethan knowing his true family. It's about my father finally having the chance to meet the daughter he never knew he had. Jennifer thought of Ethan, how the boy deserved to know his whole family, how he and William already had a special connection, and now that connection made perfect sense. I need time to process this. Of course. Take all the time you need. But Jennifer, no matter what you decide, you're my sister, and Sophie is your niece, and that will never change. That night, Jennifer watched Ethan sleeping, her son, the grandson of a billionaire, a boy who had changed so many lives with a simple act of kindness and curiosity. How would she tell him? How would she explain that the man he had helped was actually his grandfather? She decided to wait. Process first, then decide. But some decisions were taken out of her hands. 3 days later, the story leaked. Some employee from the lab that did the DNA test sold the information to the press. Cleaning assistant who saved Billionaire is actually his secret daughter. The headlines screamed. Jennifer woke up to reporters at her door, phones ringing non-stop, cameras trying to film through the windows. She was panicking. Ethan was scared. Elizabeth showed up with security, got Jennifer and Ethan out of the house, took them to a safe place. I'm sorry, Elizabeth said, genuinely distressed. I never wanted it to happen this way. It wasn't your fault. They were in a private apartment that Elizabeth maintained. Ethan was in another room watching TV, unaware of the storm brewing around them. I need to tell him, Jennifer said, before he hears it from someone else. Elizabeth agreed. Jennifer called Ethan. The boy came, still not understanding what was happening. Son, sit here with me. I need to tell you something important. Ethan sat down, his big, curious eyes watching. Do you remember Mr. William, the man from the hospital? Of course. He's my friend. Jennifer smiled sadly. He's more than your friend, Ethan. He is your grandfather. Ethan blinked, confused. But I don't have a grandfather. You always said you never knew your father. I know I said that. And it was true. I didn't know him. But now we've discovered that Mr. William is my father, which makes him your grandfather. Ethan processed that for a moment. So, when I tickled him, I was tickling my grandfather? Yes. And I helped save my own grandfather? Yes, son. A huge smile spread across Ethan's face. That's amazing. I have a grandfather, and he's really cool. Can I go see him now? Ethan's reaction, so pure and joyful, made Jennifer cry with relief. There was no anger, no confusion, just the childish joy of discovering he had more family. Yes, we can go see him. When they arrived at the private hospital, they found William surrounded by doctors. He'd had an anxiety attack upon learning the news had leaked, worried about Jennifer and Ethan. But when he saw the two enter the room, he immediately calmed down. Ethan ran to the bed. "Grandpa!" he shouted, using the title for the first time. William cried, and this time he managed to lift his trembling hand to touch his grandson's face. "Ethan, my grandson," he whispered with difficulty. "Mom told me, you're my grandpa. That's so cool." Jennifer approached the other side of the bed. She looked at the man who was her father, a man she had cared for without knowing who he really was. "Dad," she said, trying out the word for the first time. William looked at her with eyes full of tears and regret. "Forgive, Sarah. Forgive," he whispered. "She forgave you long ago," Jennifer said softly. "And I forgive you too, for everything." She took his hand and he squeezed it with all the limited strength he had. "Daughter. My daughter." And there, in that hospital room, a family came together. Not in the traditional way, not in the expected way, but a family nonetheless. In the following months, Jennifer's life changed completely. William insisted on legally recognizing her as his daughter. He processed papers to change his will, ensuring Jennifer and Ethan had equal rights to his other descendants. Amanda, from prison, fought against this, but without success. The DNA evidence was irrefutable. Sophie was thrilled to have an aunt and a cousin. She and Ethan became very close, despite the age difference. Jennifer continued working. She refused to live off the family money, preferring to maintain her independence. But she accepted help for Ethan's education, to ensure he had opportunities she never had. And every week, 3 times a week, Jennifer and Ethan visited William. His progress was slow but consistent. He was in a wheelchair now, able to move with assistance. His speech had improved, though it was still difficult and tiring, but he was alive, he was conscious, he was with his family. 1 year after the paternity revelation, William gathered the whole family at his new home. He had left the hospital finally. He lived in an adapted house with 24-hour nurses, but it was his home. Elizabeth was there. Sophie too. Even Amanda had been released from prison for good behavior and reluctantly showed up. The atmosphere was tense. Amanda wouldn't look at Jennifer. Robert hadn't been invited, his marriage to William's youngest daughter having ended after his conviction. William, with great effort, stood up. Supported by Elizabeth on one side and Jennifer on the other, he spoke. "Family together," he began, each word an effort. "Mistakes. My mistakes. Many." He looked at Amanda. "You hurt. I understand. But doesn't justify what you did." Amanda lowered her eyes. "Jennifer didn't ask to be here, but is my daughter, and her place is here." He looked at Ethan, who was sitting patiently next to Sophie. "Ethan, my grandson, saved me, literally. His pure heart brought me back." The boy smiled, delighted with the attention. William looked at everyone gathered. Family. Imperfect. But family. And family is everything. It wasn't a moment of complete reconciliation. Amanda still held resentment. She still felt she had lost her special place as the eldest daughter. But it was a start. The months turned into years. Ethan grew up, always maintaining that special connection with his grandfather. He chose to study medicine, inspired by William's journey. Sophie graduated in neurology and dedicated her career to helping patients with locked-in syndrome. Elizabeth continued managing the companies, always consulting her father on important decisions. William never regained the ability to work actively, but his mind remained sharp. Amanda eventually made peace with the situation. It took time, therapy, and a lot of swallowed pride. But she got there. She realized that a father's love wasn't a limited resource, that there was room for everyone. And Jennifer continued being who she always was, humble, hard-working, dedicated. She never forgot where she came from. She never let money change who she was. But there was a story within this story that hadn't been fully told yet, and it was 3 years after the discovery of paternity that this story came to light. It was a Saturday morning when Elizabeth called Jennifer, her voice urgent. "I need you to come to Dad's house now. I found something you need to see." Jennifer felt a knot in her stomach. They had already been through so many revelations. What else could there be? When she arrived, she found Elizabeth in William's office, surrounded by old boxes. "I was organizing the storage room when I found this," Elizabeth explained, showing an old wooden box. It was hidden behind other things, as if someone wanted it never to be found. Inside the box were letters, dozens of them, all from Sarah to William, all returned unopened. "He never opened them," Jennifer whispered, picking up one of the letters with trembling hands. "It wasn't him who returned them. Look at the stamps, the dates. They were sent over 30 years ago, before he got married." Jennifer examined the envelopes. Elizabeth was right. "Then who?" "My grandmother," a voice said behind them. They turned. It was William, in his wheelchair, pushed by his nurse. "Dad, what are you doing up? You should be resting." Elizabeth hurried to him. To tell," William said, his voice stronger than he usually managed. He had been doing intensive speech therapy. "About your grandmother." He looked at Jennifer. "My mother, controlling, ambitious. When I met Sarah, she didn't approve." Jennifer sat down, feeling she would need to be seated for what was coming next. "Sarah was poor, worked cleaning houses, like you." He looked at Jennifer affectionately. "My mother wanted me to marry well, money, status." He paused to catch his breath. Speaking was still difficult. "I loved Sarah, truly loved her, planned to marry her. But my mother found out." "What did she do?" Jennifer asked, though part of her already knew the answer. "Intercepted the letters, all of them, said that Sarah had abandoned me, that she had run away with another man." Tears were streaming down William's face now. "I believed it. I was a fool, young fool. And when my mother arranged a marriage right with a wealthy woman, I accepted. Thought Sarah didn't want me." Elizabeth was pale. "Grandma did that. She separated you." William nodded. "Years later, when she was dying, she confessed, said where the letters were, asked for forgiveness." "And you forgave her?" Jennifer asked. "No, never. Forgave her. But she was my mother, and she was dying. What could I do?" He looked at the letters in Jennifer's hands. Never had the courage to open them. Too afraid of what they would say. Jennifer looked at the envelopes, letters from her mother. Words that were never read by the man she loved. "May I read them?" she asked. "They're yours. Sarah was your mother. You're right." With trembling hands, Jennifer opened the first letter. It was dated a few months before she was born. "My dear William, I'm writing for the 10th time without an answer. I'm starting to think you never really wanted to know me. That I was just entertainment for you. But I need you to know I'm expecting your child, our daughter. Yes, it's a girl. I found out yesterday. I'm not writing to ask for anything. I know you have your life, your plans. I know you come from a family that would never accept me. I just wanted you to know you're going to have a daughter, and that no matter what happens, I'll love her with all my heart. I'll give her everything I can, even if it isn't much. If you decide to show up, I'll be here. I'll always be here." "With love," Sarah Jennifer cried. Elizabeth cried beside her, and William, trapped in his chair, cried too. "She never knew," he whispered, "never knew that I didn't receive the letters." Jennifer opened another letter. This one was from a year later. William, I heard about your marriage. I read it in the papers. You chose someone else. I can't say I'm surprised. Just sad. Our daughter was born 3 months ago. I named her Jennifer. She's beautiful. She has your eyes. I won't write anymore. You made your choice. I made mine. But I want you to know I don't hate you. How could I? You gave me the most precious thing in my life. Goodbye, my love. Sarah. She thought you had rejected her, Jennifer said, her voice choked. Her whole life she thought you knew about her and didn't care. I looked, William said, years later, when I found out the truth. But she had disappeared, moved cities, changed her name too. She wanted to start over, Jennifer explained, wanted to protect me from stares, from judgment. So we moved far away. She went back to using her mother's maiden name. That's why I never found you, William whispered. Jennifer continued reading the letters. There were more than 20, all telling about the pregnancy, about the birth, about Jennifer's early years, all returned unopened by William's mother. The last letter was different. It was from 15 years later. William, I know you won't read this. Your other letters always come back, but I need to write anyway. Jennifer is 15 now. She's an amazing young woman. Smart, kind, hard-working. Everything I always dreamed she would be. She asks about her father sometimes. I tell her you were a good man, but life took us on different paths. I don't want her to grow up angry. I'm sick. The doctor says it's serious. I don't know how much time I have. If you ever read this, if by some miracle these words reach you, please know I regret nothing. Every moment with you was worth it, because it gave me Jennifer, and if you ever meet her, please be kind. She deserves to know her father. She deserves to know she was wanted, even if you didn't know about her. Forever yours, Sarah. Jennifer closed her eyes, tears flowing freely. She wasn't sick at that time, she said. She lived another 20 years after that, but I think she was always afraid, always thought she might leave me. She was amazing, William said, and you were just like her. Jennifer looked at the man who was her father, a man who had lost the love of his life because of manipulation, who had spent 2 years trapped in his own body, who was fighting every day to regain some semblance of normality. Thank you for telling me the truth, she said, for not letting me grow up thinking you didn't want to know me. I would have wanted to, William said with vehemence. More than anything, I would have wanted to. Elizabeth embraced them both, 3 generations united in a moment of shared pain and understanding. In the following days, Jennifer read all the letters several times, getting to know her mother in a way she never had before, seeing the love Sarah had for William, the sacrifice she made to protect her daughter. And she began to understand something important. Her mother had never been a victim. She had never allowed herself to be broken by the situation. She had chosen love, chosen strength, chosen to raise her daughter with dignity and pride. Jennifer wanted to honor that. She wanted to live the same way. So she made a decision. She called Elizabeth and William to a meeting. About the inheritance, she began. About my rights as a daughter. William grew tense. Elizabeth did too. I don't want anything, Jennifer said. Jennifer, don't be absurd, Elizabeth started. Let me finish. I don't want anything for myself, but I want to establish something in my mother's name. A fund to help women raising children alone. Women who, like my mother, are doing the best they can with limited resources. William smiled, a genuine smile that lit up his face. Sarah would have loved this. So it's decided, Elizabeth asked. Yes, you can handle the legal details, but I want it to be called the Sarah Thompson Foundation, and I want to be actively involved, not just my name on paper. And so it was done. The Sarah Thompson Foundation was established with a generous endowment. Jennifer went through training, learned about fund management, about how to evaluate requests for help, and she discovered she had a talent for it, for connecting with people, for understanding their needs, for finding solutions. Ethan was proud. His son, now 13, was becoming an incredible young man. He helped with the fund whenever he could, especially during school breaks. And William, from his place in the wheelchair, watched with pride as his daughter honored the woman he had loved. Life hadn't been fair to any of them, but they were making something beautiful with the broken pieces they had been given. 4 years after the discovery of paternity, something happened that no one expected. William was improving. A lot. The intensive physical therapy, combined with new experimental treatments that Sophie had suggested, was yielding impressive results. He could move both arms now. He could stand with help for a few minutes. His speech was almost completely recovered, although he still got tired after long conversations. And then, on a spring morning, he took his first steps. With help from physical therapists on each side, William managed to take 3 shaky steps. The whole family was there. Elizabeth, Jennifer, Ethan, Sophie, even Amanda showed up. When William managed the 3rd step, everyone burst into applause and tears. "Grandpa, you did it!" Ethan shouted, jumping for joy. William was exhausted but beaming. "Ethan," he said, his voice clearer than it had been in years. "Grandson, come here." Ethan approached. William let go of one of the therapist's hands and touched the boy's face. "You saved me, literally. Those tickles awakened something. Started it all." "I just wanted to see if you were in there," Ethan said shyly. "And you saw, when no one else did, when everyone had given up. You believed." William looked at Jennifer. "You too. My daughter, brave, like Sarah. You risked everything to do the right thing." "I learned from my mother," Jennifer said. "And I'm learning from you," William replied. He looked at all the people around him, his family. Imperfect, complicated, but his. "You all gave me a second chance, not just to live, but to be better, to be the man I should have been." In the months that followed, William continued to improve. He would never fully recover. He would always need help, would always have limitations. But he was alive, he was present, he was engaged, and he decided to do something he had put off for a long time. He called Jennifer for a private conversation. "I want work with me," he said, "in the companies. Not because it's a family obligation, but because you have talent, vision, and more importantly, you have heart." Jennifer hesitated. "Dad, I don't know anything about business." "You'll learn. Like you learned about the foundation, like you've learned everything in life, and I will teach. I can still teach. But Elizabeth already manages everything." "Elizabeth needs help, and she needs someone who understands people, not just numbers. You understand people." Jennifer thought about it. It was a huge change, leaving the safety of what she knew, entering a completely different world. But when she looked at her father, she saw something in his eyes. Hope, the genuine desire to share something with her, to teach, to connect. "All right," she finally said. "Let's try." And that's how Jennifer Thompson, former cleaning assistant, began learning about her father's business empire. It was hard, very hard. She had to study at night after Ethan fell asleep. She had to learn about finance, about markets, about business strategies. But William was patient, and Elizabeth, to her credit, was generous with her knowledge and time. Gradually, Jennifer began to understand. And more than that, she began to contribute. She brought perspectives nobody else had, perspectives of someone who had lived with few resources, who understood the struggles of ordinary people. Under her influence, the companies began implementing better working conditions, fairer wages, more comprehensive benefits. The profits didn't decrease, in fact they increased. Satisfied employees worked better. Who would have thought? William was proud, and Elizabeth, initially skeptical, became Jennifer's biggest supporter. "You were right, Dad," Elizabeth said one day. "She was exactly what we needed." But not everything was easy. There was resistance from other executives, middle-aged men who didn't like taking orders from a woman who, months earlier, cleaned bathrooms. There were attempts at sabotage, small things, withheld information, meetings scheduled at times they knew she couldn't attend. Jennifer had to develop thicker skin. She had to learn to stand her ground, to demand respect, and she had to deal with the constant guilt of being away from Ethan more than she wanted. But Ethan understood. He always understood. "Mom, you're doing amazing things. I'm proud of you," he'd say, and that made everything worth it. 5 years after that first toe movement, the Anderson family was gathered for a special dinner. It was William's 78th birthday, and he had an announcement to make. "As you all know," he began, his voice still somewhat slow but clear, "I've spent the last years recovering, physically and emotionally." Everyone listened in attentive silence. "And in this process, I learned something important, what truly matters. It's not money, it's not power, it's not business empire." He looked around the table. Elizabeth, Jennifer, Ethan, now 16, Sophie, graduated and working as a neurologist, even Amanda, who had genuinely made peace in recent years. "What matters is this: family, connection, love." He paused to take a sip of water. "So, I've decided. I'm going to retire completely. Elizabeth and Jennifer, we'll take over the companies together as co-chief executive officers." There was a shocked silence. "Dad, are you sure?" Elizabeth asked. "Absolutely. You two are the future. You work well together. You have complementary skills. And more importantly, you have the right values." He looked at Jennifer. "When I met Sarah, I was a street vendor, poor, ambitious, wanted to change the world, or at least my part of it. I built an empire. I accumulated wealth, but I lost what truly mattered. I lost Sarah. I lost you." He pointed at Jennifer. "I almost lost everything." Tears were rolling down his face now. "But you brought me back." Ethan, he looked at his grandson with his innocence and faith. Jennifer, he looked at his daughter with her courage and compassion. Elizabeth, he looked at his eldest daughter with her loyalty and strength. "You have taught me that it's never too late to start over, to be better, to choose love over ambition." There wasn't a dry eye at the table. "So yes, I am certain you two," he pointed to Elizabeth and Jennifer, "will do better than I did. You already are." Elizabeth and Jennifer looked at each other. Then they looked at their father. "Together," Elizabeth said. "Together," Jennifer agreed. And that is how Jennifer Thompson, the woman who 5 years earlier was cleaning hospital rooms, became co-CEO of one of the largest business conglomerates in the United States. The news caused a sensation in the media. Stories were written about her unlikely journey. Some celebrated her as an example that anyone can achieve success with hard work. Others criticized her, saying she was only there because of her DNA. Jennifer ignored both. She wasn't there to prove anything to anyone. She was there to honor her mother, to support her father, to work with her sister, and to make a difference for people like she had been, people who worked hard but could never get ahead. Under the leadership of Elizabeth and Jennifer, the companies flourished. They implemented education programs for employees, on-site daycare, flexible schedules for parents, and surprisingly, or perhaps not, productivity increased. Employee loyalty grew. Profits rose. William watched everything from his retirement with immense pride. He spent his days with Ethan, teaching the young man about life, about choices, about what really matters. Ethan absorbed everything. He was determined to pursue medicine, specializing in neurology like Sophie. He wanted to help other people like his grandfather. And in the afternoons, William visited Sarah's grave. Jennifer took him there once a week. They would sit on the nearby bench, William in his wheelchair, he still needed it for long distances, and they would talk. Well, William would talk. To Sarah. "Hello, my love," he always began. "I brought news." And then he would tell her about Jennifer, about how amazing she was doing, about Ethan and his achievements, about the family they had built even without being together. "I ruined everything, Sarah," he would say. "I let my mother control my life. I let fear guide me. And I lost you. But you, even when I didn't know, you gave me the greatest gift, our daughter. And she is a miracle, Sarah, exactly like you." Jennifer would listen silently, tears in her eyes. "Thank you," William always ended, "for loving her, for raising her, for making her the incredible woman she is. You did what I should have done, and I am eternally grateful." It was therapeutic for him, and for Jennifer too. A way to honor her mother, to keep her alive in their memories. 7 years after the first thumb movement, something unexpected happened. Amanda, who had been quiet and withdrawn in recent years, asked to speak with the whole family. They gathered at William's house. Everyone was curious about what Amanda had to say. She was visibly nervous, fidgeting with her hands, avoiding eye contact. "I want to apologize," she finally said, "to all of you, but especially to you, Jennifer." Jennifer was surprised. "For years," Amanda continued, "I was consumed by envy, by anger. I was the eldest daughter, the first. I should have been the favorite. I should have had everything." Tears began to fall. "When you showed up, when I found out Dad had another daughter, I felt like I was losing my place, my importance." She looked at William. "And the truth is, you never made me feel that way, Dad. I put myself in that position. I created this competition that never existed." William was listening, his expression compassionate. "I did terrible things. I conspired with Robert. I suppressed medical exams. I tried to keep you trapped in that state because while you were like that, I had control. I had power." She was sobbing now. "And I almost destroyed this family in the process. I almost destroyed you, Dad, and for what? For pride? For greed?" She looked at Jennifer. You who had every reason to hate me, never treated me with anything but kindness. And that destroyed me, because it made me see the monster I had become." "Amanda," Jennifer began. "No. Let me finish. I spent the last few years in therapy, working on myself, trying to understand why I did what I did, and I realized I was trying to fill a void that could never be filled with money or power." She took a deep breath. "So I'm asking for forgiveness. I don't expect it to be immediate. I don't expect you to forget. But I hope that one day we can start over, as a real family." There was a long silence. Then William, with effort, stood up. He walked slowly to Amanda and hugged her. "My daughter," he said, "always my daughter. Mistakes. Don't change that." Amanda broke down in tears in her father's arms. Jennifer approached. She put a hand on Amanda's shoulder. "We all deserve second chances," she said softly. "Our father had his. You deserve yours too." Elizabeth joined the hug. Then Sophie. Then Ethan. The whole family, united in forgiveness and acceptance. It wasn't magical. The problems didn't disappear instantly. Amanda still had to work on herself. Trust had to be rebuilt. But it was a start. A new beginning. 10 years after that first touch of the colorful feather duster, the Anderson family was gathered for a special occasion. Ethan was graduating from medical school, top of his class. The whole family was there. William, now 82, still in his wheelchair, but with a mind as sharp as ever. Jennifer, radiant with pride. Elizabeth and Sophie, celebrating. Even Amanda, who had become a constant and positive presence in family life in recent years. When Ethan walked onto the stage to receive his diploma, William cried. "Sarah," he whispered, "our grandson, a doctor. You would be so proud." Jennifer squeezed her father's hand. "She is proud. Wherever she is, she is." After the ceremony, Ethan came running to the family. "Grandpa, did you see? I did it. I saw my grandson, and I am prouder than words can express." Ethan hugged his grandfather tightly. "It was you who inspired me, Grandpa. Your journey, your struggle. I want to help people like we helped you." William touched the young man's face tenderly. "You already have. More than, you saved my life, literally." "With tickles," Ethan laughed. "With love," William corrected. "With innocent faith. With believing. when no one else believed. That night, the family had a special dinner. It was a tradition they had developed over the years. Regular gatherings where everyone shared their lives, their victories, their struggles. "I want to make a toast," William said, raising his glass with a trembling but determined hand. Everyone raised their glasses. 10 years ago," he began, "I was trapped in the dark without hope. Everyone had given up on me, except a boy with a colourful feather duster." He looked at Ethan with love. "You saw what others did not see. You believed when it was easier not to believe, and you started a chain of events that saved not just my life, but my soul." He looked at Jennifer. "I found a daughter I never knew I had. I knew the love of a woman. I should never have let go, and I learned that it's never too late to start over." Tears were flowing freely now. "So I raised my glass," he lifted his glass higher, "to second chances, to forgiveness, to family, and to boys with colourful feather dusters who tickle billionaires' feet and change everything." They all laughed through their tears and toasted together. "The family," they echoed. After dinner, Jennifer and William were alone on the porch. The sky was starry, the night peaceful. "Dad," Jennifer said, "can I ask you something?" "Always. Do you have any regrets about how your life turned out? About the choices you made?" William thought for a long moment. "I regret not fighting for Sarah, for letting my mother control my life, for missing your first 30 years. He paused. "But I don't regret the final outcome, because everything, every pain, every mistake brought me here, to this moment, with you, with Ethan." He looked at the starry sky. "Sarah and I didn't get our happy ending, not in the traditional way, but look at what we created, even apart, even without knowing. We created you, and you created Ethan, and together, you created a miracle. It wasn't a miracle, Dad. It was persistence. It was love. It was refusing to give up. That," William smiled, "is the definition of a miracle." They were silent for a while, just enjoying each other's company. "You know what I think," Jennifer finally said. "What?" "I think Sarah and you found your way back to each other, not in the way you expected, but through me, through Ethan. Through you're together in every hug we share, in every choice we make, guided by the love you shared." William cried, and Jennifer hugged him, this man who was her father, who had lost so much, but gained so much too. "Thank you," he whispered, "for forgiving me, for accepting me, for giving me this family." "Thank you," Jennifer replied, "for fighting, for not giving up even when you were trapped in the dark, for being here now." They stayed like that for a long time. Father and daughter, brought together by impossible circumstances, connected by a love that transcended time and distance. 12 years after the first toe movement, William Anderson was in his room, surrounded by family. He was 84 years old and he was tired. The doctors said it was expected. His body had been through a lot, the coma, the recovery, the constant fight against physical limitations. But his mind was clear and his heart was at peace. "I don't want you to cry," he said, his voice weak but firm. "I lived more than I deserved. I had a second chance that few get." Jennifer held one hand, Elizabeth the other. Ethan was at the foot of the bed, now a young doctor of 26. Sophie was there too, along with Amanda. "Dad, don't talk like that," Elizabeth said, crying. "I need to speak," William insisted. "While I can." He looked at each of them. "Elizabeth, my firstborn, strong, loyal. You held everything together when I couldn't. Thank you," Elizabeth sobbed. "Amanda, my lost daughter, who found her way back. Proud of you, of the woman you became." Amanda cried, holding her father's hand to her cheek. "Sophie, my granddaughter, brilliant, compassionate. You use your intelligence to help others, exactly as it should be. Sophie smiled through her tears. Ethan, my grandson, my savior, you brought me back to life, with Tickles, with love, with pure faith. You are a miracle. Ethan couldn't speak. He just cried. And Jennifer, my daughter, my biggest regret and my greatest joy. I lost 30 years with you, but the last 12 were worth a lifetime. Jennifer squeezed his hand tightly. Dad, please, don't go yet. You still have so much time. No time, William said, but it's all right. I lived, truly lived. I loved. I was loved. I was forgiven. What more could a man ask for? He closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them again. Sarah is waiting. I can feel her. Finally, I'll be able to ask for forgiveness. Tell her about you. He looked at Jennifer. About Ethan. About the beautiful family that we created. She already knows, Dad, Jennifer whispered. Wherever she is, she knows, and she's proud. William smiled. I hope so. He looked at everyone once more. Don't cry. For me. Celebrate. Celebrate the life I had, the second chance, the love I found, the family we built. And remember, his voice grew weaker, it's never too late to do the right thing, to choose love over fear, to believe in the impossible. He looked at Ethan, and always, always believe in Tickles. With a colourful feather duster, Ethan laughed through his tears. William closed his eyes. His breathing was slowing down. Love, all of you, he whispered. So lucky. So lucky. And then, surrounded by love, surrounded by family, William Anderson breathed his last. There was no pain. There was no fear. Only peace. William Anderson's funeral was immense. Hundreds of people came. Employees from his companies, business partners, people who had been helped by the Sarah Thompson Foundation. But the most touching moment was when Ethan, now a young doctor, stepped up to speak. My grandfather, he began, his voice steady despite the tears, spent 2 years imprisoned in his own body. 2 years in the dark. 2 years when everyone had given up on him, except an 8-year-old boy with a colourful feather duster. Soft laughter echoed through the church. I didn't know I was saving a billionaire. I didn't know I was saving my grandfather. I just saw a man who looked sad, and I wanted to make him smile. And he smiled, or at least he tried, and that started everything. It started a journey that reunited a family, that exposed truths, that brought healing. My grandfather taught me that it's never too late to start over. That forgiveness is possible. That love is stronger than any prison, whether physical or emotional. He looked at Jennifer. And my mother taught me that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing the right thing despite the fear. Together they showed me that miracles happen, not always in the way we expect, but they happen. My grandfather lived 12 years after waking from the coma. 12 years he should never have had, according to the doctors. 12 years that were full of love, family, and meaning. And it all started with Tickles, with a boy who believed when no one else did. He paused, emotional. Grandpa, wherever you are now, I hope you know. You made a difference, not just in the lives of your family, but in everyone you touched, in everyone who heard your story and was inspired to never give up. And I promise to continue your legacy, helping people, believing in the impossible, and always, always keeping a colourful feather duster nearby. The church erupted in applause through tears. In the months that followed, the family adapted to William's absence. It wasn't easy. He had been the centre around which everyone revolved. But he had also prepared them well. Elizabeth and Jennifer continued running the businesses together. Their partnership was strong, based on mutual respect and shared values. The Sarah Thompson Foundation grew, helping hundreds of single mothers build better lives for their children. Ethan completed his residency in neurology and began working at the same hospital where it all began. He specialized in patients with locked-in syndrome, bringing hope where there was once only despair. Sophie became one of the most respected neurologists in the country, conducting pioneering research on consciousness in coma patients. And Amanda, transformed by the journey, dedicated her time to working with at-risk youth, using her own story as an example that change is always possible. 5 years after William's passing, the family gathered at his grave. It was a tradition they had started. Every year, on the anniversary of his departure, they would gather to honor him. Jennifer placed fresh flowers on the grave. Beside it was Sarah's grave, where William had asked to be buried. "Together at last," Elizabeth said softly. "Yes," Jennifer agreed, "as they always should have been." Ethan, now 31 years old, knelt beside the graves. Grandma Sarah," he said, "I wanted you to know. I just accepted a position. I'm going to lead a new research center for coma patients. We'll use everything I learned from you. We'll give other families the same hope you gave us." Jennifer knelt beside her son, placing a hand on his shoulder. "They're proud, son. I'm sure of it." Elizabeth joined them, as did Sophie and Amanda. The 5 people, united by blood ties and by something even stronger, bonds forged in adversity and forgiveness. "You know what's funny?" Sophie said, breaking the reverent silence. "If someone had told me this story 20 years ago, I never would have believed it. A boy tickling a billionaire and changing everything. Sounds like a movie script. But it happened," Ethan said with a smile, "and it was better than any movie." They stayed there for a few more minutes, each lost in their own memories, in their own reflections about how life can change in an instant. As they were leaving the cemetery, Jennifer saw something that made her stop. A young woman, perhaps around 25, was standing near the gates. She seemed nervous, hesitant. When she saw Jennifer looking, the young woman approached timidly. "Sorry to bother you," she began, "but you're Jennifer Thompson, right? William Anderson's daughter." "Yes," Jennifer replied, curious. "My name is Rachel. My mother, she was helped by the Sarah Thompson Foundation. 5 years ago. We were in the worst possible situation, no home, no money, no hope." Tears began to fall down the young woman's face. "The foundation gave us a chance. It paid for temporary housing, helped my mother find work, paid for my college, and now I just graduated from nursing school. I got my first job, and I wanted to say thank you." Jennifer felt emotion rising in her throat. "You don't need to thank me. It was your mother who worked hard. It was you who studied." "I know, but without that help, without that hand extended when we needed it most, I don't know where we'd be today." Rachel wiped away her tears. "When I heard that Mr. Anderson had passed, and that today was the anniversary, I wanted to come pay my respects, to thank him and your mother, Sarah, in whose name the foundation was created." Jennifer hugged the young woman. "They would be so proud of you. My mother would love knowing you're helping other people now." After Rachel left, Jennifer became thoughtful. That was the legacy. Not the money, not the businesses, but the lives touched, the hopes renewed, the chances given. That evening at home, Jennifer looked at Sarah's letters that she kept carefully in a special box. She had read them hundreds of times, but never grew tired of them. There was one in particular that she always reread when she needed strength. It was the last one Sarah had written, the one where she spoke about being sick. Jennifer knew now that her mother hadn't really been sick at that time, but there was something prophetic in those words, as if Sarah knew that one day they would be read, one day they would make sense. She picked up the letter and read it again. "If you ever read this, if by some miracle these words reach you, please know, I regret nothing. Every moment with you was worth it, because it gave me Jennifer." Jennifer closed her eyes, imagining her mother writing those words. Young, alone, raising a daughter without the support of the man she loved, but never bitter, never full of hate. Her phone rang, pulling her from her thoughts. It was Ethan. "Mum, can you come over to my place? There's something I want to show you. Jennifer went to Ethan's apartment. He lived alone now near the hospital where he worked. When she arrived, she found him sitting on the living room floor, surrounded by boxes. "What is all this?" she asked. "Remember how Grandpa left some personal things to me in his will? Things he specifically wanted me to have?" "Yes." "Well, I finally found the courage to open the boxes, and I found this." He handed her an old notebook with a worn leather cover. "What is it?" "Read it." Jennifer opened the notebook and immediately recognized the handwriting. It was William's, but shaky, difficult. He had written it during his recovery, when he was still relearning how to control his hands. The first entry was dated 6 months after he woke up from the coma. "Today I managed to hold a pen for more than 5 minutes. It seems small, but for me it's a victory. I decided to start writing. I don't know if anyone will read this, but I need to get it out. I need to process everything that happened. I spent 2 years trapped inside my own body. 2 years conscious but unable to move, to speak, to scream. Sometimes I wonder how I didn't go insane, how I kept some sanity. The answer is simple. It was the visits, mainly from Sophie, my granddaughter, who would come and talk to me as if I could hear, because I could. Every word, every tear, every whisper. And then came the boy, Ethan. He tickled my foot with a colorful feather duster, and for the first time in 2 years I felt something beyond despair. I felt hope. He didn't know I was his grandfather. None of us knew. But he saw me, truly saw me. When everyone else looked through me, he looked at me. Today, I found out he is my grandson, that Jennifer, his mother, is my daughter, the daughter I never knew I had, the daughter of Sarah, the woman I loved and lost because of my own cowardice. And I don't know whether to laugh or cry, because it's tragedy and miracle at the same time. I lost 30 years with my daughter, but I gained a family I never knew I had. Sarah, wherever you are, forgive me. Forgive me for not fighting for you, for letting my mother control my life, for choosing safety over love, but thank you. Thank you for Jennifer. Thank you for raising such an incredible woman. Thank you for Ethan, who saved me when I didn't even know I needed saving. I will spend the rest of my life making up for the lost time. I will be the father I should have been, the grandfather Ethan deserves. And one day when my time comes, I will meet you, and I will be able to look into your eyes and say, I did the best I could with the second chance I was given. Jennifer had to stop reading. The tears blurred her vision. Keep going, Ethan said softly. There's more. She turned the pages, reading entry after entry. William documented his recovery, his thoughts, his fears, his hopes. He documented every important moment, every small victory. And then she came to an entry that made her stop completely. It was dated 2 years before William's departure. Today, Jennifer took me to Sarah's grave. It's something we do every week, but today was different. Today, for the first time, I felt that Sarah heard me, that she was there somehow. And you know what I realized? That our love story didn't end. It's continuing through Jennifer and Ethan, through the Sarah Thompson Foundation, through every life touched, every hope renewed. Sarah and I didn't have our happy ending in the traditional sense. We didn't grow old together, holding hands. But we created something more lasting. We created a legacy of love that goes beyond ourselves. Jennifer has Sarah's heart, her compassion, her strength, her ability to forgive the unforgivable. And Ethan has the innocence I lost long ago, the ability to believe in miracles, to see kindness where others see only despair. Together, they are everything Sarah and I could have been, and that fills me with a joy I never thought I would feel again. My body is weak. I know I don't have much time. The doctors don't say it, but I know. I can feel it, and it's okay, because I lived. I truly lived. Not just existed, but lived with purpose, with love, with meaning. When I go, I want everyone to know that I have no regrets. Well, maybe one. I wish I had more time. More time with Jennifer. More time watching Ethan grow. More time to make up for the lost years. But the time I had was precious, and I won't waste a single second of it being sad about what could have been. I will cherish every moment, every smile from Jennifer, every visit from Ethan, every family gathering. and when the time comes, I will go in peace. Knowing that I left the world a little better than I found it, that I touched lives, that I made a difference, and that finally I will be with Sarah again." Jennifer closed the notebook, unable to continue reading. Ethan hugged her as she cried. "He was at peace, Mom," Ethan said. "In his last years, he was truly at peace." "I know, it's just, there's so much I wish I had said to him, so much I wanted him to know." "He knew." "I'm sure he knew." They stayed like that for a while, comforting each other, united by their shared loss and the love they had for that complicated but deeply good man who had been William Anderson. In the following weeks, Jennifer read the rest of the diary. There were entries until just days before William's departure, and in each one she saw her father's brilliant mind, the depth of his emotions, the complexity of his thoughts. She decided to do something special with that diary. With Ethan's and the rest of the family's permission, she published it. Not for profit, all proceeds would go to the Sarah Thompson Foundation, but to share the story. The book was called Awakening, Memoirs of a Man Imprisoned and Freed, and became a phenomenon. People from all over the country, from all over the world, connected with William's story, with his struggle, with his redemption, with his journey back to humanity. And most importantly, it gave hope. Hope to families with loved ones in comas. Hope that maybe, just maybe, those people who seemed lost were still there, waiting for someone with a colorful duster to see them. Sophie used the book as a basis for her research. She developed new protocols to test consciousness in coma patients. She saved lives, reunited families. Ethan brought copies of the book to all his patients, to their families. It became a symbol of hope at the research center he directed. And Jennifer, well, she found a way to keep not only William's memory alive, but also Sarah's. She decided to write her mother's story too. She spent months interviewing people who knew Sarah, old neighbors, co-workers, friends. She pieced together her mother's life, creating a portrait of an extraordinary woman who had lived an ordinary life. When the book Sarah, the Love That Never Died was published, it became even more popular than William's. Women from all over the country saw themselves in Sarah. Single mothers struggling to raise children, women who loved and lost, women who chose strength over bitterness. The two books, read together, told an epic love story. Not the kind with a traditional happy ending, but something deeper, a story about love that transcends circumstances, that survives separation, that manifests through generations. 5 years after the books were published, Jennifer was giving a lecture at a university. She did this regularly now, speaking about second chances, about forgiveness, about never giving up. After the lecture, a young woman approached. She seemed to be in her 20s with eyes red from crying. "My father is in a coma," she said without preamble, "for 6 months, and the doctors want to turn off the machines. They say there's no hope." Jennifer felt her heart tighten. "And you? What do you think?" I don't know. He seems so far away, so lost. But after reading your father's book, I can't stop thinking, what if he's in there? What if he can hear when I talk to him?" "Then keep talking," Jennifer said softly. "Keep believing. Because even if he doesn't wake up, even if the ending isn't what you hope for, he'll know you didn't give up. And that matters." The young woman hugged Jennifer tightly. "Thank you. Thank you for sharing your story, for giving us hope." After the young woman left, Jennifer kept thinking. That was what William and Sarah had left behind. Not just a reunited family, not just a business empire, but hope. Hope for strangers, for people they would never meet, but whose lives were touched by their story. That night, Jennifer visited her parents' graves. She did this less often now, not because she forgot, but because she felt they were with her always. She didn't need a physical place to connect with them, but sometimes, like that night, she needed the ritual. She needed the quiet of the cemetery, the weight of the words carved in stone. She sat on the bench between the two graves and spoke. "Mom, Dad, you won't believe it. The young woman I met today reminded me of myself, of how I felt when I found out about my father. Scared, hopeful, confused. And I realized something. You both gave me different gifts. Mom, you gave me strength. You taught me that I can endure anything, that I can raise my son alone, that I can thrive even in difficult circumstances. And Dad, you gave me forgiveness. You taught me that it's never too late to start over, that mistakes don't define who we are, but how we respond to them does. Together you gave me a family, a complicated, imperfect family, but full of love. She paused, wiping away tears. Ethan is getting married next year, to an amazing young woman named Olivia. She's a teacher, works at a public school in an underprivileged area. You would have loved her. And you're going to be great-grandparents soon. Olivia is pregnant, 2 months. They're having a boy. Jennifer smiled through her tears. And you know what they're going to name him? William Sarah Thompson. Both names, because Ethan says he is the result of both loves, of your love, which created this family. I wish you were here to meet him, to hold him, but I know you will be. In some way, you will be. The wind blew gently, making the flowers on the graves sway, and Jennifer chose to believe it was an answer, a confirmation that they heard, that they knew, that they were proud. The months passed quickly. Ethan's wedding was beautiful, a joyful celebration with the whole family gathered. Elizabeth was there, of course, along with Sophie and Amanda. All the sisters, all the cousins, all united. During his speech, Ethan told the story of how it all began. When I was 8 years old, he said to the audience, I tickled a comatose man's foot with a colorful feather duster. I didn't know that man was my grandfather. I didn't know that simple act would change everything. But it did. It led to discoveries, to revelations, to healing. It led my mother to find the father she never knew. It led me to have a family I never knew I had. And now I'm here marrying the woman I love, surrounded by this amazing family, and I can't help but think that it all started with faith, with believing in the impossible. He looked at Olivia, his eyes shining with emotion. You taught me that miracles still happen, that love finds a way, and I promise to spend the rest of my life proving that your faith in me was deserved. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. 3 months after the wedding, William Sarah Thompson was born, a healthy baby with big, curious eyes who seemed to observe everything around him with intense interest. When Jennifer held her grandson for the first time, she felt a deep connection. It was as if a circle was closing. From Sarah to her, from her to Ethan, from Ethan to this little being who carried the names of his great-grandparents. You'll grow up hearing stories, she whispered to the baby, about your great-grandmother Sarah, who loved with all her heart, about your great-grandfather William, who found redemption, about how their love, even when separated, created something beautiful. The baby grasped her finger, and Jennifer smiled through her tears. And you'll know it's never too late for miracles, that faith moves mountains, and that sometimes all we need is someone with a colorful feather duster who refuses to give up on us. The years kept passing. Jennifer aged gracefully, dedicating her life to the Sarah Thompson Foundation and the family businesses. Elizabeth eventually retired, leaving Jennifer as the sole CEO. It was an enormous responsibility, but she was up to the task. Under her leadership, the companies became examples of social responsibility, not just profitable but ethical, caring for employees, contributing to the community, making a difference. Ethan became a world reference in treating patients with locked-in syndrome. He developed new protocols, new treatments, gave hope where there was once only despair. And little Billy, as the family affectionately called William Sarah, grew up surrounded by love and stories. By age 5, he already knew by heart the story of how his grandfather Ethan had saved his great-grandfather with tickles. It was his favorite story, and he always asked Grandpa Ethan to tell it again. Grandpa, tell me again about the colorful feather duster, he'd ask. And Ethan would tell it, each time adding new details, making the boy laugh and marvel. Jennifer watched these interactions with a full heart. The story was being passed on. The legacy was alive. When Jennifer turned 70, the family organized a surprise party. Everyone was there, including people whose lives had been touched by the Sarah Thompson Foundation. Hundreds of people, all with stories of how they'd been helped, how they'd been transformed. One by one, they stood up and shared their stories. Mothers who managed to raise their children, young people who managed to study, families who managed to start over. And Jennifer realized that this was the real gift. Not the party, not the speeches, but knowing that her mother's life, her father's mistakes and successes, her own journey, everything had meaning. Everything had made a difference. When it was her turn to speak, she stood up, looking at all those faces. "When I was young," she began, "I was just Jennifer Thompson, a cleaning assistant, raising my son alone, working hard, dreaming of a better life. I never imagined that one day I'd be here, surrounded by family I didn't even know I had, running companies, helping people. But life has a funny way of surprising us, of taking our tragedies and turning them into triumphs, of using our pain to create purpose. My son tickled the foot of a man in a coma, and that simple act, done with innocence and childlike curiosity, changed everything. It taught me that miracles aren't always grand. Sometimes they're small gestures. Sometimes they're believing when everyone says to give up. Sometimes they're tickles with a colorful feather duster." She looked at Ethan, who was holding Billy in his lap. "It taught me that family isn't just blood. It's choice. It's forgiveness. It's showing up day after day, even when it's hard." She looked at Elizabeth, Sophie, even Amanda. "It taught me that it's never too late to start over, that we can choose to be better, that we can choose love instead of fear." And then she looked up at the sky as if she could see through it. "Mom, Dad, wherever you are, thank you for giving me life, for teaching me about strength and forgiveness, for giving me this amazing family. And I promise to keep honoring you, to keep making a difference, to keep believing in impossibles." The room erupted in applause, but Jennifer barely heard it. She was lost in memories, in gratitude, in deep love for all she had and all that had been. That night, already at home, Jennifer looked at old photographs. She had a collection now, photos of a young Sarah, which she had found among her mother's things, photos of William during his recovery, family photos, of precious moments captured in time. Her favorite was a picture taken 6 months after William woke up. In it, Ethan was sitting on the hospital bed next to his great-grandfather, holding the colorful feather duster. William was smiling, a crooked but genuine smile, and his eyes were fixed on the boy with pure love. That photo captured everything: the hope, the love, the impossible but real connection. Jennifer put the photo back in the album and sighed. She was tired, her bones ached, her body showed signs of age. But her mind was clear and her heart was full. She thought about everything she had lived through, the struggles, the victories, the losses, the gains, and she realized she wouldn't change a thing. Every moment, every challenge, every tear had led to this moment, and it was worth it. Her phone rang. It was a message from Ethan with a picture. Billy sleeping, hugging a colorful feather duster. A new one, bought especially for him, but representing the same hope, the same faith. Jennifer smiled. The legacy continued. The story was being passed on, and as long as there were people willing to believe, to tickle Billionaire's feet, to refuse to give up, there would be hope. 10 years later, Jennifer was in her office when she received an unexpected call. "Mrs. Thompson, this is the International Medical Society. We would like to invite you to receive a humanitarian award for the work of the Sarah Thompson Foundation and the impact your story has had on research into consciousness in coma patients." Jennifer was speechless. "An international award? Why?" "Your son, Dr. Ethan Thompson, has revolutionized the field," the voice continued. "And it all started with your courage to believe, to speak up, to fight for your father when everyone had given up. You have inspired a generation of researchers, of families, of hope. The ceremony was beautiful." Jennifer, now 80 years old, walked slowly but with dignity onto the stage. Ethan was in the audience, applauding with tears in his eyes. Billy, now a 15-year-old teenager, was next to his father, proud. In her acceptance speech, Jennifer spoke about Sarah, about William, about Ethan and the colorful feather duster. "This award is not mine," she said. "It belongs to a woman named Sarah Thompson, who raised her daughter alone with strength and grace. It belongs to a man named William Anderson, who fought to return from the depths of imprisonment. It belongs to an 8-year-old boy who believed when no one else did. And it belongs to every family that refuses to give up, to every doctor who keeps looking for signs of life, to every person who chooses hope over despair. Because miracles happen, not always in the way we expect, not always with perfect happy endings, but they happen. And sometimes all we need is to have enough faith to tickle a foot with a colorful feather duster. 3 years later, Jennifer was in her garden when she felt a sudden pain in her chest. Ethan, who was visiting, immediately took her to the hospital. The doctors ran tests, and the diagnosis was clear. Her heart was failing. At 83 years old, her body was tired. "How long?" she asked calmly. "Weeks, maybe months," the doctor replied kindly. Jennifer nodded. She was at peace. She had lived a full life, had made a difference, had loved and been loved. In the following weeks, the family took turns visiting her. She was at home where she wanted to be, surrounded by photos and memories. Elizabeth came, now herself an elderly lady. "Thank you," Elizabeth said, holding her sister's hand, "for everything. For teaching me about forgiveness, about accepting the unexpected. You made our family better." Sophie came with her own daughters, the next generation. "Aunt Jennifer, you inspired my career, my life. I will never forget. Even Amanda, fragile but determined, made the trip." "You were a better sister than I deserved," Amanda said, crying, "and I'm grateful for every moment." But it was Ethan and Billy who stayed the longest. Ethan left his job, dedicating himself completely to his mother in her final days. And Billy, now an 18-year-old young man, sat beside his great-grandmother for hours, holding her hand, telling stories about school, friends, and dreams. "Grandma Jennifer," he said one day, "I want to be like you when I grow up. I want to make a difference." Jennifer smiled weakly. "You already do, my love, just by existing, by carrying their name, by keeping the story alive." "I'm going to study medicine," Billy said, "like Dad, and I will continue great-grandfather William's work." "He would be so proud," Jennifer whispered. On her last night, Jennifer had a dream, or perhaps it was more than a dream. She was in a beautiful garden, full of flowers she didn't recognize, but that seemed familiar. And there, sitting on a bench, were Sarah and William. They were young, as they must have been when they first met. Sarah was laughing, and William was looking at her with adoration. When they saw Jennifer, both stood up. "Daughter," Sarah said, opening her arms. Jennifer ran into the embrace, feeling like a child again. "Mom, I missed you so much." "I know, my love, but I was always with you. Always." William approached, touching Jennifer's face tenderly. "My daughter, you surpassed everything we could have hoped for. You made our story mean something." "You did that," Jennifer said. "Both of you together created something beautiful." "The three of us," Sarah corrected. "You, Jennifer, were the bridge. The connection we didn't even know we needed." They walked together through the garden, and Jennifer felt a peace she had never experienced before. "Is it time?" she asked. "Yes," William replied gently. "But it's not the end. It's just the next chapter. And Ethan, Billy, the family, they will be fine," Sarah assured. "You prepared them, gave them everything they need. Now it's time to rest." Jennifer looked back to where she knew her body was, in a bed, surrounded by family. And then she looked forward, to Sarah and William, to the garden that seemed to go on forever. "I'm ready," she said. And together, the three of them walked toward the light. The next morning, Ethan found his mother at peace, a gentle smile on her face. There was no struggle, no pain, just a gentle transition from one world to another. Jennifer Thompson's funeral was immense. Thousands of people came to pay their respects, employees from the companies, beneficiaries of the Sarah Thompson Foundation. patients Ethan had treated, researchers who had been inspired by the story, and Billy, now the youngest in the family, was the one who gave the main speech. "My great-grandmother Jennifer was a simple woman who lived an extraordinary life," he began, his voice steady despite the tears. "She didn't seek fame or fortune. She only sought to do what was right. And by doing so, she changed the world. Not the whole world, perhaps, but the world of every person she touched. And that, in the end, is what matters. She taught me that miracles happen, that faith moves mountains, that love is stronger than any circumstance." He paused, emotional. "And she taught me about a boy with a colorful feather duster who refused to give up on a man in a coma. That boy was my father, and that man was my great-grandfather, and that simple action changed everything. It changed my family, it changed my life, and it changed countless other lives along the way." He looked at Jennifer's coffin. "Grandma, I promise to continue your legacy, continue the work of the Sarah Thompson Foundation, continue believing in impossibles, continue metaphorically tickling the feet of billionaires the world has given up on. And one day, when my time comes, I will meet you, and I will be able to say I made you proud." There wasn't a dry eye in the church. Jennifer was buried next to Sarah and William, 3 graves side by side, 3 lives intertwined, 3 stories that together formed an epic, and engraved on her tombstone were the words she herself had chosen years before. She believed when no one else did, and that made all the difference. The years continued. Ethan kept working until his own retirement, always honoring the memory of his mother and grandfather. Billy became a doctor, as promised, specializing in neurology and continuing his father's pioneering work. And with each generation, the story was told. The story of Sarah and William, the story of Jennifer and Ethan, the story of a colorful feather duster and a foot that moved. It became a family legend. But more than that, it became an inspiration, a reminder that we should never give up, never stop believing, never underestimate the power of small gestures. 50 years after Jennifer's passing, the Sarah Thompson Foundation had helped over 100,000 families. The Anderson businesses thrived under ethical leadership, and the research center Ethan founded had saved hundreds of lives, reunited countless families. And in a hospital room, somewhere in the United States, a child tickled a comatose patient's foot with a colorful feather duster. Not because they knew the story of Ethan and William, but because they had the same instinct, the same hope, the same faith, and the foot moved. And so the cycle continued, miracles happening in unexpected places, hope blooming in despair, love triumphing over impossible circumstances. Because that is the nature of life. It surprises us, it challenges us, it breaks us and rebuilds us. And sometimes, just sometimes, all we need is someone who refuses to give up on us, someone who believes when everyone else has stopped believing, someone with enough faith to tickle our foot with a colorful feather duster and bring us back to life. End of story. And now, dear listener, we have reached the end of this emotional journey. What did you think of the story of William, Sarah, Jennifer, and Ethan? Do you believe small gestures can change everything? Share your honest opinion in the comments. Tell us where you're following us from and if you've ever experienced a similar situation. Don't forget to leave your like. It really helps the channel grow, and most importantly, subscribe so you don't miss other stories that will touch your heart. Thank you so much for your company up to here.